I can make you walk again, but there's a condition. Jennifer Miller was finishing her lunch at the cafe on Broadway when she felt someone touch her arm. Turning to look, she saw a boy about 6 years old with messy blonde hair and a brown jacket that seemed too big for his slender frame. "You're in a wheelchair, right?" the boy asked with the innocence typical of children. Jennifer sighed. After 2 years in a wheelchair, she was used to kids' curiosity. She usually responded patiently, but today she wasn't in the mood. "Yes, I am," she replied curtly, trying to focus back on her phone. "I can make you walk again," the boy said, with such conviction that it made her stop everything. Jennifer looked directly into the boy's blue eyes. There was something different there, a seriousness that didn't match his age. "What did you say, kid?" "I said I can make you walk again, but there's a condition." The 32-year-old businesswoman felt a mix of irritation and curiosity. Over the last 2 years, since the accident that left her paraplegic, she'd heard all kinds of miracle promises, charlatans, alternative therapists, even people who swore they had spiritual cures. They all wanted her money, but never had a child approached her with such an offer. "And what would that condition be?" she asked, more out of politeness than belief. The boy glanced around as if checking if anyone was listening, then leaned closer to her chair. "You have to help me find my mom." "Your mom? Where is she?" "I don't know. That's why I need your help. My name's Ethan, and I live with my grandma Margaret over in Brooklyn. But my mom disappeared 3 months ago." Jennifer's heart tightened. Despite her skepticism, there was something genuine in the boy's desperation. "Ethan, shouldn't you be in school right now?" "I should, but I ran away. Grandma Margaret is really sick, and I heard her on the phone saying they might have to send me to an orphanage if my mom doesn't show up soon." The situation kept getting more complicated. Jennifer looked at the boy and saw her own hands trembling on the wheelchair's wheels. It wasn't fear, it was something different, a feeling she hadn't had in a long time. Hope. "Ethan, what you're saying is really serious. How exactly can you make me walk?" The boy leaned even closer, whispering as if it were a state secret. "My grandma was a nurse for 40 years. She took care of people who couldn't walk, and she taught me some things, special exercises. Our neighbor, Mrs. Gladys, hadn't walked in 5 years, and now she can take a few steps." Jennifer shook her head. It was obviously a child's fantasy. "Ethan, sweetheart, I have a spinal cord injury. The best doctors in the country told me there's no chance of recovery. But have you tried Grandma Margaret's exercises?" "No, of course not." "Then how can you be sure they won't work?" The boy's simple logic completely disarmed her. Jennifer ran a hand through her brown hair and looked at the bustling street, people walking, running, living their lives normally while she remained stuck in that chair. "Listen, Ethan, even if I wanted to help you find your mom, that's a job for adults. You need to talk to the school social worker to—" "I already did," the boy interrupted, his eyes brimming with tears. "No one believes me. They say my mom Amanda left me, but I know that's not true. Something happened to her." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now back to the story. "Why are you so sure of that?" "Because on the day she left home, she said she'd come back at night to take me out for pizza. My mom never breaks a promise to me. Never." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. There was a purity in the boy's faith that moved her deeply. "And what does your grandmother think about this?" "Grandma Margaret has pneumonia. She can barely get out of bed. That's why I have to find my mom on my own." The businesswoman looked at Ethan again. Despite his young age, he carried a weight on his shoulders that no child should bear. She knew that feeling of desperation and loneliness all too well. "Ethan, I'll make you an offer. I'll help you look for your mom. But no more talk about miracle exercises, okay?" The boy's face lit up but soon turned serious again. "No, ma'am. It has to be the way I said. If you won't agree to the exercises, I can't accept your help." "Why?" "Because Grandma Margaret always told me that when you help someone, you have to give the best you have. And the best I have to give is helping you walk again." Jennifer fell silent for a moment. There was a dignity in that boy that impressed her. Even in despair, he didn't want charity. He wanted a fair exchange. "All right, Ethan. I accept your offer." "Really?" The boy's eyes sparkled. "Really? But let's set some ground rules. First, you go back to school today. Second, your grandma always needs to know where you are. Third, we'll look for your mom the right way, with real investigation." "What about the exercises?" Jennifer took a deep breath. She didn't believe for a second it would work, but if it made the boy feel useful, it couldn't hurt to try. "The exercises too. But first, tell me everything about your mom's disappearance." Ethan sat on the floor beside Jennifer's chair, leaning against the cafe wall. "My mom works as a cleaner in 3 different places. In the morning at a clothing store, in the afternoon at a law office, and at night at a vet clinic. The day she disappeared was a Friday. She left in the morning like always, but didn't come back for lunch." "She always came back for lunch?" "Always. Grandma Margaret makes a soup my mom loves. She never misses it." "Did you check the places where she works?" "Grandma and I looked on Saturday. The clothing store said she never showed up that Friday. The law office said she didn't come either. At the vet clinic, we couldn't talk to anyone because it only opens at night." Jennifer mentally noted everything the boy said. Her experience as a businesswoman had sharpened her investigative instincts. "Ethan, did your mom take anything from home when she left?" "Just her bag, the blue one she always carries." "What about money? Did she have any saved?" The boy shook his head. "My mom always said extra money was for Grandma's medicine and my school." "What kind of medicine does your grandma take?" "Heart and blood pressure pills. They're expensive. Mom always complained about the price." Jennifer began piecing the situation together. A struggling family, a hard-working mother supporting a son and a sick grandmother alone. Something didn't add up about this disappearance. "Ethan, I'll need to talk to your grandma. Can you take me to her?" "I can, but she's very weak. The doctor said she shouldn't have visitors." "What doctor?" "Dr. Richard. He comes by once a week to check on Grandma." "Does he charge for the visits?" "I don't know. Mom handled that stuff." Jennifer sensed too many loose ends. A doctor making free house calls wasn't common, especially for a low-income family. "All right, Ethan. Here's what we'll do. I'll go with you to your house to meet your grandma and understand the situation better. After that, we'll start the exercises you mentioned. Deal?" "Deal!" The boy quickly stood up. "You'll see I'm not lying about anything." Jennifer paid for the coffee and began moving her wheelchair. It had been a long time since she felt so determined to do something. Maybe it was the mystery surrounding Amanda's disappearance, or perhaps the irrational hope Ethan had planted in her heart. They walked through the streets of New York City, Jennifer pushing the chair and Ethan walking beside her, sharing more details about his family. "My mom is really pretty, you know. She has black hair like mine but straight, and she sings oldies when she's cooking." "What kind of songs?" "From Grandma Margaret's time, Elvis Presley, oldies. Grandma always says my mom takes after her in musical taste." "What about your dad, Ethan? You never talk about him." The boy fell silent for a moment. "My dad left when I was 3. Mom said he wasn't ready to be a father." "Do you miss him?" "Sometimes. But my mom and Grandma Margaret take really good care of me. We were happy before Grandma got sick and before Mom disappeared." Jennifer noticed the premature maturity in the boy's words. Ethan had learned early that life isn't always fair, but he held on to unshakable hope. They arrived at a small 2-story house in Brooklyn. The paint was peeling, but the house had a well-kept garden with roses and some medicinal herbs. "My mom planted these roses last year," Ethan remarked, opening the gate. "She said when I grow up, I'll understand that the most beautiful things in life need patience to bloom." The profound reflection from such a young child moved Jennifer. She was beginning to understand where Ethan's peculiar wisdom came from. Inside, the house was simple but welcoming, well-preserved antique furniture, family photos on the walls, and the scent of medicinal herbs in the air. "Grandma Margaret, I brought a visitor," Ethan called toward the back of the house. A weak voice answered from one of the rooms. "Ethan, sweetheart, shouldn't you be in school?" "I'll explain later, Grandma. Can you receive a visitor?" Jennifer made her way to the bedroom, carefully maneuvering the wheelchair through the narrow hallways. When she reached the door, she saw a woman around 70 years old lying in bed, her grey hair tied in a bun and blue eyes identical to her grandson's. "Mrs. Margaret, my name is Jennifer. Ethan told me about your daughter's disappearance and I'd like to help." The elderly woman tried to sit up but was stopped by a cough. "Miss, I'm sorry to receive you like this. This bronchitis never gets better." "You don't need to apologize. Ethan told me you were a nurse for many years. 42 years working at Memorial Hospital. I retired 5 years ago, but the experience stays, doesn't it?" Jennifer glanced at Ethan, who was leaning against the wall watching the conversation. "Mrs. Margaret, Ethan mentioned you taught some exercises to people who couldn't walk." The old woman looked confused at her grandson. "Ethan, what's this about?" "Grandma, I told Miss Jennifer about the exercises you did with Mrs. Gladys." "Sweetheart, that was nothing special. Gladys had muscle tightness from staying in bed too long. I just helped her strengthen her legs again." Jennifer felt a pang of disappointment, but not surprise. As she suspected, there was nothing miraculous about the boy's special exercises. "But could you still teach me?" she asked, more to avoid disappointing Ethan than believing in results. "Of course, dear. Any movement is better than staying still. But tell me, have you had a precise diagnosis for your injury?" "Complete injury at T12L1. Without reflexes, without feeling." Mrs. Margaret made a thoughtful expression. "How long has it been?" 2 years. "And did you do intensive physical therapy in the first few months?" "I did everything the doctors recommended. I spent a fortune on treatments here in the US, and even went to a clinic in Germany." "I see. Well, even so, it doesn't hurt to try some basic exercises. Who knows, they might at least help with circulation and muscle tone." Ethan approached his grandmother's bed with shining eyes. "Grandma, so you're going to teach Mrs. Jennifer the exercises?" "Yes, I am, my grandson. But first, explain to me why you skipped school." The boy lowered his head. "I was looking for information about Mom, Grandma." "Ethan, we've talked about this. Your mother will come back when she can. You need to trust that." "But Mrs. Margaret," Jennifer interrupted, "did you file a missing persons report?" The elderly woman sighed. "We did, but the officer said an adult disappearing voluntarily isn't an urgent case. But do you really believe Amanda left of her own free will?" Mrs. Margaret stayed silent for a moment, then looked at Ethan. "Sweetheart, go to the kitchen and make some tea for our guest." When Ethan left the room, the woman moved closer to Jennifer. "Young lady, between us, I'm very worried. My daughter-in-law would never abandon Ethan. She's a devoted mother, works herself to the bone to give that boy the best. Do you have any suspicions about what might have happened?" "I do. The week before she disappeared, Amanda was acting strange, worried about something, but she wouldn't tell me what." "Strange how?" "She kept looking out the window like she was waiting for someone, and one night I heard her crying in her room." "Did you ask what was wrong?" "I did, but she said it was just work exhaustion. I've known my daughter-in-law for 8 years, dear." "That wasn't exhaustion." Jennifer felt she was finally getting closer to relevant information. "Mrs. Margaret, do you remember any specific details? Strange phone calls, unfamiliar people at the door?" "Now that you mention it, there was a weird phone call about 3 days before she disappeared." "Weird how?" "It was late, around 11 at night. The phone rang, and when Amanda answered, she turned very pale. She only said a few words and hung up quickly." "Did you hear what she said?" "I heard her say, 'I already told you I can't, and leave my family out of this.' After that, she got even more nervous." The puzzle was starting to take shape in Jennifer's mind. There was definitely something more complex behind Amanda's disappearance. "Mrs. Margaret, I'll be honest with you. I have resources and connections that might help find Amanda. I can hire a private investigator, check security cameras, things like that." The elderly woman's eyes filled with tears. "Young lady, would you really do that for us?" "Of course, but in return I'd like you to teach me those exercises Ethan keeps talking about." "But dear, I already told you there's nothing miraculous about them." "I know, but I made a promise to your grandson, and I intend to keep it." Just then, Ethan returned with an improvised tray, carrying 3 cups of lemon balm tea. "Done. Grandma, Did you tell Mrs. Jennifer about the exercises? Yes, my grandson, and Jennifer is going to help us look for your mother. The boy's face lit up completely. Really, Mrs. Jennifer, you'll really help me. I will, Ethan. And we'll start today. Jennifer grabbed her phone and called her assistant. Michael, I need you to cancel all my afternoon appointments and get me the contact info for the best private investigator in New York City. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. While Jennifer was making arrangements over the phone, Ethan approached his grandmother. Grandma, do you really think Ms. Jennifer can help us? Yes, I do, my grandson. Sometimes God places angels in our lives when we need them most. So does that mean my idea of trading exercises for help was good? Ms. Margaret smiled for the first time in weeks. It was a very good idea, Ethan. A very good one indeed. Jennifer finished the call and turned to them. All set. Tomorrow morning I'll meet with the investigator. But first, Ms. Margaret, could you show me these exercises? Of course. But there's no space here in the bedroom. Let's go to the living room. They moved to the living room, where Ms. Margaret, despite her difficulty, managed to get out of bed to guide Jennifer. The first exercise is quite simple, the older woman explained. My daughter will try to contract her thigh muscles even if she can't feel anything. But if I can't feel it, how will I know if I'm contracting them? Through mental effort, the brain still sends the signal even if the body doesn't respond. Over time, sometimes some connections can rewire. Jennifer found the explanation interesting, though she didn't fully believe it was possible. All right, I'll try. For about an hour, Ms. Margaret guided Jennifer through a series of exercises combining mental muscle contractions, massages, and passive stretches. Ethan helped by holding her legs and watching everything with absolute attention. Now let's try a different exercise, said Ms. Margaret. Jennifer, I want you to close your eyes and imagine you're walking on the beach. Imagine? That's right. The brain doesn't distinguish well between real and imagined movement. That's why athletes use visualization to improve performance. Jennifer closed her eyes and tried to focus. For a few seconds, she could almost feel the sand between her toes, the sun on her face, the sea breeze. When she opened her eyes, she saw Ethan and Ms. Margaret looking at her expectantly. Did you imagine it? The boy asked. I did. And how did it feel? Jennifer paused to think. There was something different, a subtle sensation she couldn't quite place. Well, I think so. A little strange, but good. Great, Ethan cheered. Grandma, did you see? It worked. Easy, my grandson. This is just the first step. It'll take a lot of practice and patience. Jennifer checked the clock and realized it was already late afternoon. Everyone, I need to go. But I'll come back tomorrow to continue the exercises and start the investigation. Are you sure you'll come back? Ethan asked with a childlike fear of abandonment. Absolutely sure, Ethan. In fact, I'll leave my number so you can call me if you need anything. Jennifer wrote her number on a piece of paper and handed it to Ms. Margaret. Thank you so much for everything, dear. It's been a long time since I've seen Ethan so excited. Don't mention it, Ms. Margaret. See you tomorrow. On her way back home, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. There was something about the simplicity of that family that moved her deeply. Ethan with his determined innocence, Ms. Margaret with her practical wisdom, and Amanda, a woman she didn't even know but already admired for her dedication to her children and mother-in-law. Arriving at her apartment in the Upper East Side, Jennifer went straight to her office. She grabbed a notebook and began writing down everything she knew about Amanda's case. Single mother, works 3 jobs, disappeared on a Friday 3 months ago. Didn't show up to any of her jobs that day, received a threatening phone call 3 days before, was visibly nervous the week prior. Family lacks the financial means to hire an investigator. Jennifer called her assistant again. Michael, did you get the investigator's contact? Yes, I did. His name is Daniel Cooper, comes highly recommended. He can meet with you tomorrow at 10. Perfect. And I need you to get me something else. Information on 3 businesses, a clothing store, a law office, and a veterinary clinic, all in the Brooklyn area. What kind of information? Owners' names, how long they've been operating, any history of employee issues. Understood. Anything else? That's all for now. Oh, and Michael, cancel all my appointments next week. I have a very important case to handle. After hanging up, Jennifer headed to the bathroom to shower. As the hot water ran over her body, she reconsidered the exercises she had done with Margaret. No matter how much her rational mind dismissed any possibility of improvement, there was something different. A subtle, almost imperceptible feeling, but different. Must be my imagination, she thought to herself. The mind is a powerful thing. But even as she tried to rationalize it, she couldn't completely ignore the small spark of hope that had ignited in her chest. That night, Jennifer had the best sleep in months. For the first time in a long while, she felt she had a clear purpose: to help Ethan find his mother, and who knows, discover if there really was any chance of recovery. The next morning, she woke earlier than usual and prepared carefully. She had an important meeting with the investigator, and afterward, she'd return to Margaret's house to continue the exercises. Daniel Cooper's office was located on Fifth Avenue in an unassuming commercial building. The investigator was a man around 45, with graying hair and a trustworthy demeanor. Mrs. Jennifer, your assistant gave me some details about the case. A woman missing for 3 months, correct? Exactly. Amanda Wilson, 28, single mother, works as a cleaner in 3 different places. Jennifer recounted all the details she had uncovered the day before, while Daniel took notes on a pad. This threatening phone call stands out to me, the investigator remarked. Usually, people who disappear voluntarily don't get threats beforehand. That's exactly what I thought. What do you suggest? We'll start by checking security cameras in the area where she lived and her workplaces. Then we'll talk to her employers. Sometimes people know more than they realize. How long could this take? If we're lucky, a few days. If not, a few weeks. Depends on what we find along the way. Money isn't an issue, Mr. Cooper. I want you to use whatever resources are necessary. Perfect. I'll start today. After the meeting, Jennifer headed to Brooklyn. She was eager to share the news with Ethan and Margaret, and curious to continue the exercises. When she arrived at the house, she found Ethan playing in the garden with a wooden toy car. Mrs. Jennifer, you really came back. Of course I did, Ethan, and I have good news. They went inside where Margaret waited in the living room, noticeably more energetic than the day before. How are you feeling today, Margaret? A little better, dear. I suppose hope really is a powerful medicine. Jennifer told them about the meeting with the investigator and saw Ethan's eyes light up with excitement. You mean a real detective is going to look for my mom? That's right, Ethan, and he's very good at what he does. When will he start? He already has. Now it's just a matter of waiting and continuing to do our part. Our part is the exercises, right? Exactly. Mrs. Margaret, would you be willing to teach me more exercises today? Of course, dear. In fact, I thought of some different techniques we could try. For the next 2 hours, Mrs. Margaret guided Jennifer through a series of more elaborate exercises, massages with essential oils, resistance stretches, and breathing techniques that supposedly improved tissue oxygenation. Now let's try something I learned from a fellow physical therapist, said Mrs. Margaret. It's called sensory stimulation. How does it work? I'll run different textures over your legs, and I want you to focus intensely, trying to feel something. Mrs. Margaret gathered several objects: a soft brush, a nail file, an ice cube, and a warm towel. As she ran each item over Jennifer's legs, she asked her to concentrate fully. Now close your eyes and tell me if you notice any difference when I switch objects. Jennifer closed her eyes and tried to focus. For several minutes she felt absolutely nothing. But then, when Mrs. Margaret used the ice cube, there was something, an almost imperceptible sensation, like a distant echo. Wait, Jennifer said, opening her eyes. Can you do that again? I was using ice. Why? I don't know. I thought I felt something. Ethan, who had been watching everything, quickly moved closer. Really, Mrs. Jennifer? You felt it? I don't know if it was real or my imagination. Let's try again, suggested Mrs. Margaret, her eyes gleaming differently. They repeated the exercise several times. Most attempts yielded nothing, but on 2 occasions there was a subtle sensation when the ice touched her skin. "This is interesting," Mrs. Margaret murmured. "Very interesting indeed. Do you think it means something?" "It might, dear. Sometimes nerves can regenerate minimal connections. It's rare, but not impossible." Jennifer's heart raced. Could there really be a chance of recovery? "But let's not get our hopes up too high," Mrs. Margaret cautioned. "It could just be a reflex reaction or even mental suggestion." "I understand. But we'll keep trying, right?" "Of course we will." They spent the rest of the afternoon alternating between exercises and discussions about the investigation. Ethan asked 1,000 questions about how a private detective's work functioned, while Mrs. Margaret shared memories about Amanda. "My daughter-in-law is a very special person," the older woman said. "When my son left her and Ethan, I offered to let her move somewhere else, so she wouldn't have the burden of taking care of me too. You know what she said?" "What?" "She said family is family, and she wouldn't leave me alone. Ever since then, she's taken care of me as if I were her own mother." "That's why you're so sure she didn't leave on her own," Jennifer observed. "Exactly. Amanda may have her flaws, but lack of character isn't one of them." Jennifer's phone rang. It was Daniel, the investigator. "Mr. Cooper, do you have any news?" "I do. I've uncovered some interesting information about Amanda's workplaces. Can we meet tomorrow morning so I can go over the details?" "Of course. Is there anything I should know right away?" "Well, let's just say one of her employers wasn't entirely truthful about the circumstances of her disappearance." Jennifer felt a chill in her stomach. "What do you mean by that?" "I'd rather explain in person. But I can say that the case is getting more complicated than we imagined." After hanging up, Jennifer became thoughtful. Ethan noticed her concern. "Did something bad happen, Mrs. Miller?" "I don't know yet, Ethan, but whatever it is, we'll figure it out, I promise." "Do you always keep your promises?" "Always. Like my mom." "Like your mom." That night, Jennifer returned home with mixed feelings. On one hand, the possibility of having felt something during the exercises gave her hope. On the other, Daniel's mysterious tone about the investigation worried her. Before bed, she did some exercises alone, trying to replicate what Mrs. Margaret had taught her. She iced her legs, focusing intensely on the chance of any sensation. The first try, nothing. The second, still nothing. But the third time, there it was again. That subtle, almost imperceptible feeling, as if her body was trying to remember what it was like to feel. "Maybe it's not just in my head," she thought before falling asleep. The next morning, Jennifer woke to an unexpected call. It was Mrs. Margaret, her voice strained. "Jennifer, dear, can you come here right away?" "Of course, Mrs. Margaret. Did something happen?" "It's about Amanda. We found something here that might be important." "I'm on my way. Are you okay?" "I am, but Ethan is very upset." Jennifer cancelled her meeting with Daniel and hurried to Brooklyn. She found Ethan sitting on the couch, clutching a piece of paper. "What happened, Ethan?" "We found a letter from my mom, Mrs. Miller. It was hidden under her mattress." Jennifer took the letter and read, "My dear Ethan, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I want you to know I love you more than anything in this world, and I would never, ever leave you by choice. These past few weeks I got caught up in something very complicated. I can't give details because it might put you and Grandma Margaret in danger, but I want you to know everything I did was to protect our family. If something happens to me, there's an envelope hidden behind the St. Anthony painting in the living room. Inside is important information that must be given to someone you trust. Always be a good boy, study hard, and take care of Grandma Margaret. One day, when you're older, you'll understand that sometimes adults have to make hard choices. I love you forever, Mom Amanda." Jennifer's throat tightened as she finished reading. The letter confirmed all their suspicions. Amanda hadn't disappeared willingly. "Did you get the envelope she mentioned?" "Not yet," Mrs. Margaret replied. "We waited for you." They went to the St. Anthony painting on the living room wall. Behind it was indeed a yellowed envelope. Jennifer carefully opened it. Inside were photographs, payment receipts, and a note in Amanda's handwriting. The photos showed a middle-aged man talking to several people in what looked like a warehouse. "Mrs. Margaret, do you recognize this man in the photos?" "Yes, I do. That's Dr. Richard, the doctor who used to come here to treat me. The one who did free house calls?" "That's right." Jennifer examined the receipts. They were all payments to Amanda, but not for cleaning work. The amounts were large, far more than she could have earned cleaning. "Ethan, did your mom ever mention making extra money from any job?" "No, Mrs. Miller. She always complained about barely making ends meet." The notes on the paper listed dates, times, and names Jennifer didn't recognize. There was also an address in Queens. "I need to call the investigator right away," Jennifer said, grabbing her phone. "Daniel, it's me, Jennifer. I need to cancel our meeting. Some important things happened here." "What kind of things?" "We found a letter left by Amanda and some evidence suggesting she was involved in something dangerous." "What kind of evidence?" "Photographs, receipts for large payments, and notes with names and addresses. And there's more. The doctor who provided free visits for the family appears in the photos." "Interesting. This connects to what I discovered yesterday. What did you find?" "The law firm where she worked no longer exists. It shut down abruptly 2 weeks after Amanda's disappearance." Jennifer felt a chill. "And there's more," Daniel continued. "The owner of the firm is under investigation for money laundering." "Oh my God." "Jennifer, I think it's best we meet in person. And bring the evidence you found." "Where can we meet?" "Somewhere public, Westfield Mall, food court in an hour." After hanging up, Jennifer explained the situation to Margaret and Ethan. "Does this mean my mom was in danger?" the boy asked, his eyes welling up. "It means she was trying to protect you, Ethan. Your mother is a very brave woman." "But where is she now?" "That's what we're going to find out." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Jennifer gathered all the evidence in a folder and got ready to leave. "Margaret, I'm meeting with the investigator. Stay here and don't open the door for anyone, okay?" "Okay, dear, but be careful." "I will, and I'll call as soon as I know anything." On the way to the mall, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about the situation. Amanda had gotten involved in something dangerous to earn extra money, probably to pay for Margaret's medicine or to give Ethan a better life. And now she was paying the price for it. The meeting with Daniel was revealing. The investigator examined all the evidence with professional care. "Jennifer, this is very serious. From what I can see, Amanda was being used as a front in a money laundering scheme." "A front?" "She received dirty money, likely through fake jobs, and then transferred it to other accounts. It's a common method to clean illegal funds." "And this doctor, Dr. Richard, he's probably the one who recruited her for the scheme, offered free treatment for her mother-in-law in exchange for small favors. But where is she now? Either she found out something she shouldn't have and was taken out of the picture, or she's hiding because she realized the danger. How do we figure out which one it is? By investigating this address in her notes. But this is dangerous, Jennifer. We're dealing with people who don't play around. I don't care about the danger. I promised that boy I'd find his mother." "Then let's do this the right way. I'll contact some colleagues and we'll set up a proper operation." "How long will it take?" "A few days. We need to be cautious." Jennifer returned home with a heavy heart. How could she explain to Ethan that his mother was involved in something so dangerous? And how could she keep the boy's hope alive? That night, she decided not to go back to Margaret's house. She needed time to process everything and come up with a plan. But around 10 o'clock, her phone rang. It was Margaret, her voice frantic. "Jennifer, dear, you need to come here now." "What happened, Margaret?" "Ethan is gone. He left 2 hours ago and hasn't come back." Jennifer felt the world spin. "Do you have any idea where he might have gone?" "No. He said he was going to buy bread at the corner bakery, but the bakery is already closed and he hasn't come back." "Calm down, Mrs. Margaret. I'm on my way, and I'll call Daniel." "Jennifer, what if the people who took my daughter-in-law found out we're investigating?" The possibility sent a chill down Jennifer's spine. If Ethan had been kidnapped because of the investigation, she would never forgive herself. She arrived at Mrs. Margaret's house in record time, finding the older woman in tears in the living room. "Mrs. Margaret, we need to think calmly. Did Ethan take anything with him when he left?" "He took his school backpack. I thought it was strange, but I figured he was using it to carry the bread." "What else was in the backpack?" "His notebooks. And I think he took the photocopies of the evidence you made this morning." Jennifer's heart raced. "Photocopies? What do you mean?" "After you left, Ethan asked me to make copies of everything at a print shop. He said he wanted to keep them as mementos of his mother." "Mrs. Margaret, I don't think Ethan was kidnapped. I think he left on his own to look for his mother." "But how? He's just a child." "He overheard our conversation about the address in Queens. I bet he went there." Jennifer immediately called Daniel. "Daniel, we have an emergency. The boy is missing, and I think he went to that address in Queens." "Jennifer, this is too dangerous. If those people realize a child is investigating..." "I know. That's why I need to go after him now. Don't go alone. Meet me in front of the address in 30 minutes and bring backup." "What kind of backup?" "I know some private security guys. They're reliable." Jennifer quickly said goodbye to Mrs. Margaret, promising to bring Ethan back safe and sound. The address in Queens was an industrial warehouse in a somewhat abandoned area. When Jennifer arrived, Daniel was already there with two men who looked like ex-military. "We did a quick recon," Daniel informed her. "There's movement inside. Cars coming and going, people moving around. And Ethan, we haven't seen any sign of him yet, but we found his backpack thrown behind some containers up ahead." Jennifer's legs nearly gave out. If anything had happened to Ethan, "Let's go in," she decided. "Jennifer, this is a job for professionals. You stay here." "No way, that boy is in there because of me. I'm going with you." They quickly devised a plan. The two security men would enter through the front as a distraction, while Daniel and Jennifer would try to get in through the back to search for Ethan. The operation started badly. As soon as the security men approached the main entrance, they were met with gunfire. It was obvious they were dealing with well-armed, organized criminals. "Change of plans," Daniel said. "We'll have to call official backup. There's no time. If they realize their operation has been exposed, they might hurt Ethan." Just then, they heard a child's scream coming from inside the warehouse. "That's Ethan," Jennifer exclaimed. "He's alive." Without waiting for Daniel, she began pushing her wheelchair toward the back of the warehouse. The investigator had no choice but to follow her. They managed to find a broken window at the back of the building. Daniel went in first, then helped Jennifer get from her chair inside the warehouse. Inside, they were met with a shocking scene. Several people were tied to chairs, including Ethan, and at the center of it all was Amanda, also tied up, but alive. "Mom!" Ethan cried when he saw Jennifer and Daniel approaching. "Ethan, thank God you're okay," Jennifer whispered. But before they could get any closer, a man's voice echoed through the warehouse. "Well, well, well. Looks like we have more unwanted visitors." They turned and saw a well-dressed middle-aged man pointing a gun at them. It was the same man from the photographs, Dr. Richard. "Dr. Richard, I presume," said Daniel, keeping his cool. "In the flesh. And you must be the detectives who've been snooping around my business. We just want the boy and his mother. We have no interest in your operations." "Ah, but it's too late for that now. You've seen too much, you know too much." Jennifer looked around and realized there were at least 5 armed men in the warehouse. Their chances of getting out alive seemed slim. "What do you do with these people?" she asked, trying to buy time. "Business, my dear. People in financial trouble are very useful for money laundering. Amanda here was one of my best collaborators." "Until she decided to stop cooperating," Amanda added, her voice hoarse but firm. "Exactly. And now she'll serve as an example to the others." "Leave my mom alone," Ethan shouted, struggling against his restraints. "Easy, kid. Soon you'll all be reunited in a more permanent situation." Jennifer knew she had to act fast. She glanced around and spotted several fuel canisters scattered across the warehouse. Discreetly, she whispered to Daniel, "When I give the signal, create a distraction." "What signal?" "You'll know." Jennifer began shifting slowly in her chair, pretending to cower in fear. In reality, she was positioning herself near one of the fuel canisters. "Where do you think you're going, sweetheart?" one of the thugs asked, Please, don't hurt us. I have money. I can pay you to let us go." "How much?" Dr. Richard asked, intrigued. "A lot. I'm a businesswoman. I have connections. I could be useful to you." As she spoke, Jennifer discreetly loosened the cap on the canister beside her. "Interesting offer," the doctor said. "But first you'll have to prove you're trustworthy." "How?" "By killing one of the hostages. That way I know you're committed to my operation." "Never," Jennifer exclaimed. "Then you all die. Simple as that." At that moment, Jennifer swiftly tipped over the fuel canister, spilling its contents across the floor. Simultaneously, she shouted, "Now, Daniel!" The investigator immediately fired at the warehouse lights, plunging the space into near-total darkness. In the chaos, Jennifer managed to reach Ethan and began untying him. "Miss Jennifer," the boy cried. "Easy, Ethan. We're getting out of here." But Dr. Richard wasn't stupid. He quickly flicked a lighter and yelled, "If anyone moves, I'll burn this whole place down." Everyone froze. With fuel pooling on the floor, a single spark would turn the warehouse into a death trap. "Very clever, businesswoman. But now you're in an even worse position." "Maybe not," came a familiar voice from the warehouse entrance. Everyone turned to see Margaret walking slowly inside, leaning on her cane. "Grandma, what are you doing here?" Ethan shouted. "I came for my family, my grandson." "How can a sick old woman help me?" Dr. Richard laughed. "Who said I came alone?" Margaret replied. At that moment, flashlights flared around the warehouse and men's voices shouted, "Drop your weapons, you're surrounded." "How?" Dr. Richard muttered, bewildered. "You really thought a public hospital nurse with 40 years of experience wouldn't know a few precinct captains?" Margaret said with a smile. The police operation was quick and efficient. Within minutes, all the criminals were in custody and the hostages freed. Ethan ran into his mother's arms as Amanda wept with relief. "Mom, I knew you hadn't abandoned me." "Never, my boy, never in my life." Jennifer approached the reunited family, overwhelmed with emotion. "Amanda, are you okay?" "I am, thanks to you." "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. It was Ethan who saved me." "What do you mean?" "It's a long story. We'll talk later." At that moment, Jennifer realized she wasn't just feeling emotion. There was something different, a sensation in her legs she hadn't felt in 2 years. "Mrs. Margaret, I think I'm feeling something in my legs." The elderly woman came closer and quickly examined Jennifer. "Wiggle your toes." Jennifer focused intensely, and to everyone's surprise managed to slightly move the big toe on her right foot. "Oh my God!" Amanda exclaimed. "That's impossible," said Daniel. "The exercises worked," Ethan cheered. "Hold on, everyone," Mrs. Margaret interrupted. "This could just be adrenaline and the excitement of the moment." But Jennifer knew it was more than that. It had to do with purpose, with love, with a reason to fight. Mrs. Margaret's exercises had planted the seed, but it was the emotional connection with that family that made the difference. In the following days, the newspapers reported the downfall of a major money laundering ring. Dr. Richard and his accomplices were arrested, and dozens of people used as fronts were freed. Amanda had to give a statement, but since she was a victim of the scheme, she faced no criminal charges. She landed a steady job at a cleaning company Jennifer recommended, with a fair wage and proper benefits. Mrs. Margaret fully recovered from pneumonia, especially after receiving proper treatment through the health insurance Jennifer arranged for the whole family. And Ethan? Ethan remained the wise and determined boy he'd always been, but now with his family whole again. As for Jennifer, she kept up with the exercises religiously. There was no instant miracle, but there was steady, gradual progress. 6 months later, she could stand with support for a few minutes. A year later, she took her first hesitant steps. The doctors called it an atypical recovery and an extraordinary case. Mrs. Margaret called it love and determination. Ethan simply called it our promise kept. Jennifer's company transformed. She created a rehabilitation program combining traditional physical therapy with emotional support and life purpose. Mrs. Margaret became the program's supervisor. Amanda handled administrative coordination, and Ethan, well, Ethan remained everyone's inspiration. 2 years after their first meeting at the cafe on Broadway, Jennifer walked slowly but unaided through the therapy room at her rehabilitation center. Beside her, Ethan, now 8, helped other patients with the exercises he'd learned from his grandmother. "Mrs. Jennifer, remember what I said on the first day?" the boy asked. "I do, Ethan. You said you could make me walk again, but there was a condition." "And did I keep my promise?" "You kept more than your promise, Ethan. You didn't just make me walk, you taught me how to live again. And did you keep yours?" "I found your mother, like I promised." "No, Mrs. Jennifer. Your promise was much bigger than that." "What do you mean?" "You helped me find not just my mom, but a whole family. You, Mom, Grandma Margaret, and me. Now we're all family." Jennifer smiled, tears in her eyes. Ethan was right. The boy's condition wasn't just about finding his mother. It was about creating a new family, a network of support and mutual love. "You know what's funny, Ethan?" "What?" "You said you could make me walk again, but really, you made me fly." Just then, Amanda and Mrs. Margaret approached, carrying a chocolate cake with candles. "What are we celebrating?" Jennifer asked. 2 years since the day we met," Amanda replied, "and 2 years since our family was complete." "Make a wish, Mrs. Jennifer," Ethan said. Jennifer closed her eyes and thought about everything that had happened. 2 years earlier, she was a bitter woman, confined to a wheelchair and without hope. Today she was walking again, had a family she had chosen, and a purpose that made her wake up excited every day. "I know what my wish is," she said, opening her eyes. "What?" everyone asked in unison. "That our family keeps growing, so we can help more people find hope when they think there's no way out." "That's a beautiful wish," said Mrs. Margaret, "and I'm sure it will come true." They blew out the candles together, and Jennifer looked around the physical therapy room. Dozens of patients were doing exercises, guided by a team that combined medical knowledge with human compassion. It was more than a rehabilitation center. It was a place where small miracles happened every day. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you know I'd agree to help you?" The boy thought for a few seconds before answering. "I didn't, Mrs. Jennifer, but Grandma Margaret always told me that when you really need something and ask with a sincere heart, the universe always sends someone to help. And if I had said no, then I would have looked for someone else, until I found someone who understood that sometimes helping others is the best way to help ourselves." Jennifer shook her head, impressed once again by the wisdom of that boy. "You're very smart, Ethan." "I'm not smart, Mrs. Jennifer. I just learned that love is the most powerful force in the world, and when you truly love, you can do things that seem impossible." That night, Jennifer wrote in her personal journal, "Today marks 2 years since a 6-year-old boy approached me in a cafe and changed my life forever. He said he could make me walk again, but there was one condition. I thought the condition was helping him find his missing mother. But now I understand the real condition was much deeper. I needed to learn to love again. To love life, to love other people, to love the possibility of starting over." Ethan fulfilled his part of the promise in an extraordinary way. Not only did he make me walk physically, but he also taught me to walk emotionally. He gave me back hope, purpose, and a family I chose with my heart. And me? I hope I've fulfilled my part too. Not only did I find Amanda, but I also helped reunite a family and created a place where others can find the same hope I found. What I've learned these past 2 years is that miracles aren't supernatural events. Miracles are deep human connections, people who genuinely care for each other, promises kept even when they seem impossible. Ethan taught me that the condition for any true healing isn't in the exercises or the medicine. The condition is in love, faith, and the determination to never give up on dreams. And the best part? This is just the beginning of our story. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe love and determination can truly work miracles? Leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.